It's dark down here. No light can reach us. The abyssal depths. A lifeless void. Or maybe not so lifeless.
Hello!
Oh yes, fellow hunters, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monster Lore. Today we tackle the tentacle dragon, although more accurately the deep sea dragon, the abyssal dragon, that which is an amalgamation of your worst nightmares from the depths below, and wrought into monster form, elder dragon form, and done so with equal parts haunting beauty and terrifying grace. This is Namielle, and this is Namielle. To find yourself face to face with, unprepared. So, it's weirdly thinking about it, it's been like, what, 3 years almost since Iceborne? Never mind World? I am starting to think that perhaps we start to look at those World and Iceborne monsters because I think they are now well ingrained enough into the annals of Monster Hunter history to really, well, have a deep dive into, as it were. But also, 3 years ago was Iceborne!
What year is it?
So, Namielle, one of my all-time favourite monsters, and I genuinely believe one of the most well-designed and thought-out monsters ever to grace the series. I think everyone remembers well this creature, in all three of fight, form, and function. Thunder and water, not natural bedfellows, here are married beautifully in a dance of death, turned firmly on Hunter, though not without cause. For Namielle, despite outward appearances,
But Lord, those teeth, man!
in fact unable to close its mouth with just how bristling full it is of needle-sharp spine-esque teeth, akin to the anglerfish of the deep. Lots of monsters, fish down in the sea, though I guess really monstrous is what you could call them, as fascinating they are, do come equipped with, well, needles instead of what you might imagine. I mean, fish teeth in general are very much like this, but they do tend to get gnarlier the lower down you go, and the anglerfish, I think, is a perfect example for the kind of maw that Namielle evokes. And I do wonder, while on the topic of the anglerfish, if Namielle perhaps shares another trait of it. See, the anglerfish, the ones that you think of and see, they're all female. The male is tiny, about 20th the size of the female anglerfish, and in order to reproduce, the male will quite literally dissolve itself into the female, dying in the process to fertilize the eggs. So the concept that all the Namielle we fight are female, and there's like tiny hand-sized male Namielle running around that we just don't see, and that's how they do, like the deep sea, is just great to me. But of course, there's no reason or rhyme to think that other than the general amalgamation of deep sea life that has been melted potted together to birth this dragon, so we'll put a pin in that for now. In any case, Namielle is fairly calm, taking a lot to ire and quite content to be observed, even without a gillymantle present. It will eye you carefully, but it has no need to concern itself with such weak, inconsequential creatures. Even finding it atop the Coral Highlands, it is very much content with simply crashing you over the side and away with its mastery of the waters. Or, to put it another way, Mr. Wyverian, quite happy to let gravity do the work and not waste its energy and time with the hunter, at least not yet. And indeed, Namielle does seem to have a little bit more of a status in the hierarchy of Elder Dragon. To have this legend of the Master of the Torrent, to have an ancient Wyverian speak of it, that gives it quite the history and pedigree, and there's definitely something significant there. It seems quite the pillar of an Elder Dragon, and not just a simple, it's just another kind of Kushala, you know, Teostra, Chameleos thing doing its thing. It seems to have a history, and that's quite intriguing. But You may be wondering then, what's with the darkness? Because it doesn't make anything dark while you fight it, but when it's first introduced, it certainly does. Well, Namielle likes to use itself and its overwhelming jellyfish-like wing-shaped structure and span to act as a mini eclipse and block out the sun by being directly above its prey or a would-be aggressor. This obviously gives it plus 10 to intimidation, which a lot of the time lets it pass the difficulty check. That's a D&D Namielle crossover joke right there for anyone who appreciated it. So this is quite the quirky trait, but one not suited for combat, more ambush, fear, and easy hunting tactics, of which it no longer needs after we've engaged it after the initial introduction. So that jellyfish mention was very much apt, because Namielle shares a lot with a certain jellyfish, the comb jellyfish. I mean, already you're probably like, oh yeah, no, I get, yeah, Nami, alright. You see the kind of RGB look that it's got going on for it, doing it long before it was cool on keyboards, and it's a very fascinating organism. Jellyfish on the whole can basically be described as living water, and they really are weird creatures. Namielle then draws from a lot more than just the jellyfish and the anglerfish. There is also some manta in how it moves and glides through the air, for it doesn't flap too much. It very much is very minimal. It's like it is swimming above the coral highlands, in the same way that a manta ray glides through the water with very minimal flapping, air quotes, of its wings. It conserves energy, and it's the very efficient way to travel when you are able to do so. Namielle then will likely use the natural updrafts of the coral highlands and the air currents that are found high up in this mountainous region to fill its parachute-like wings like, well, a parachute, and get a lot of distance for very little energy actually used. Which would make sense, as in the Coral Highlands its most likely prey, especially given its teeth, would be smaller fish or any kind of animal it can get its hands on, as opposed to tracking down and grappling with bigger monsters and or herbivores for its meal. Namielle would feed little and often, and spend its time in between, well, being as efficiently lazy as possible. And that I can respect. In any case, there is yet more. For of course, Namielle's main feature, apart from the catfish-like whiskers, which let it have an adept sense of the world around it, and help it in locating prey, and generally get a read on its environment, is the water itself. Though Namielle's water is not really water. It's kind of, I mean, it's closer to slime. Namielle definitely stores water, but it combines it with its own mucus-like substance that it produces internally to create a new water-esque sticky blue liquid. This liquid, well, sticks to surfaces in denser clumps. It's less runny than water. It also lasts longer. You can see the sheen of it when you find Namielle's tracks. It's how it marks its territory too, similar to Anjanath's mucus, but of course this one is blue. What was that? I'm trying to give Lloyd. This one is blue, but this one is blue. And because of this, it can get a lot more use out of it. If it was pure water, it would become very, well, ineffective very quickly as it seeps into the ground and runs off before Namielle can actually, well, combat with it. And indeed, how it doth combat with it is its combination of its thunder organ. Very much like a electric eel that can tase fish and eat them at its leisure. In fact, well, electric eels have taken the lives of crocodiles that have been caught in a deathly embrace. The electricity here cannot be underestimated, and scaled up to a dragon of this size, yeah, it is two organs that rub against each other, one positively and one negatively charged, and thus the electricity, the current, is generated. And it uses it as a much more precise single burst zap, very much like said taser. It's not thunderbolts or continued streams of electricity, it is blasts. And what these blasts do is electrocute the pools of mucousy water, which initially is of course shocking, and then it causes it to superheat instantly, nearly instantly, turn into steam, resulting in a violent explosion, which is of course very much not good to be in. This change through the water and makes approaching an Namielle from any angle once it has set up its favoured terrain incredibly dangerous and difficult. This very much is an Elder Dragon that has mastery of its battlefield. But to roll back to the slimy water once more, we get yet another creature that Namielle likely draws influence from, and that is the hagfish. And the hagfish is weird. An animal with a skull but no spine, a rarity to be sure. It definitely has a defense fitting that already weird setup. What the hagfish will do when attacked is produce copious amounts of nasty tasting sticky slime that make the predator essentially go,
I'm gonna eat you. Why are you like that? Jesus Christ.
As it swims off into the distance, embarrassed and ashamed that it even tried. Seriously, one hagfish can make a bucket's worth of slime in very little time. And this is a very, very, unique defense method, but when you see this, you can kind of get behind Namielle coating the entire zone in this watery slime and using it. But Namielle does not have an infinite supply. It can fire it out as beams, it can pull the water around, but it eventually will run out and need to reload, as it were, by absorbing fresh water. Otherwise, it will quite literally dangerously dehydrate itself, which we do see an example of. In its final, most devastating attack, it will release every bit of water it has stored, alongside its largest jolt of electricity, creating the most monumental explosion it's capable of, momentarily stopping the rainfall with its upward force and decimating everything around it in a cacophony of chaos. The downside to this, though, is if it does not work, the Namielle is left drained of colour, itself dangerously dehydrated, its muscles smaller, its skin pale, its movements weaker, unable to muster the energy to use its electricity, save for a few last spurts, and indeed now requiring the reabsorption of its watery mucus. And it can indeed do that, and we see it often as it flows into itself. Its porous skin allowing it to take form, coat itself, and be supped up and drunk, essentially, in order to refill and refresh the Namielle. It ebbs and flows like the tide in cycles. The watery mucus expelled, the opponent slain, the watery mucus absorbed, the Namielle once more at its prime. It is an efficient way to go about business, not wasting resources and letting it carry on to see another day. But of course it can be used against it if struck at in this weakened state before it can sufficiently re-water itself. Namielle then is a fascinating monster. As we've seen, so much aquatic life has gone into defining elements of it, even having that bioluminescence as so many deep-sea animals do. Perhaps you would think unnecessary above the surface where daylight reigns, but nocturnal very well could be the way for Namielle. Using the light both to see and to lure prey to it, it simply needs to remain still and let the little creatures come investigate the such irresistible glow, and then it's the last thing they know. One thing is for certain, it really is a perfectly adapted and evolved killing machine, and one of the best Elder Dragons, I would say, full stop. Its armor is gorgeous, and just its existence makes me very, very much happy, and I would love to see it again. I know it's only a game away, but I definitely would put Namielle in the camp of monsters that should become like permanent recurring fixtures, a la Joe, a la Rajang, a la Teostra, and so on and so forth. I really think it is that special, and I think it is very much not a monster anyone would be like, oh, Namielle, especially with how unique it is in both the water and the thunder. It instantly adds some good diversity to any game it is in. But more than that, damn do I want another version of Namielle. I think it would benefit from a kind of rare species treatment where it gets its existing kit turned up to 11, evolved, but, you know, kept along the same vein as opposed to like an element swap or a completely different approach. And I think just a super intense evolution on this Elder Dragon concept would be utterly magnificent. In any case, then, that is Namielle. That is how it do, and that is how it be. And it really is quite the special monster. Whether it could actually swim and exist under the waves is another thing entirely. It does seem very much built for the land, and I doubt it would actually, ironically, find much maneuverability down below. Though if we ever do get underwater combat back and Namielle designed for it, maybe that could be the alternate version. That would be, whoa, if they didn't, I feel like it would be a missed opportunity. But something with this precise control over water, or I guess spit, mucus, water, is really neat, and I'm all for more and more water-based monsters. For now then, guys, that is your Namielle. How do you like your Namielle? Let me know what monster you'd like to see next. Like you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more Monster Hunter lore, and indeed more Monster Hunter in general. And until we meet again, consider supporting the future of this channel on Patreon down below. It is what keeps us going, and it does mean, seriously, the actual world, guys. It really, really does. Thank you. Oh, God. Bye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.